Never discount the impact of a coach in professional sports, especially hockey. Winnipeg Jets new head coach Rick Bowness has absolutely put his stamp and staple on the team. He's had some very, very clear, decisive, and actionable items that he's given to his team, and some really choice, interesting words for the media and for you and I as hockey fans. So join me in this video as we dissect what Rick Bowness has done to move the Winnipeg Jets into first place in the Central Division with the exact same team, or near enough to it, that Paul Maurice had, that has struggled in the last 2 or 3 years and been marred by locker room and on ice controversy. Bowness has the Jets flying. He has them flying in unison. Let's talk about why. For those of you that aren't massive Jets fans, the Winnipeg Jets just dismantled the Anaheim Ducks 5-2. However, there was a point there in the period where the Jets were being outshot 20-8. You've heard that right, 20-8. And at one point it was 15-3. It was an absolutely horrendous start for the Jets, but we've seen since Rick Bowness has come in, he has been an incredibly clear and decisive communicator within his team. He was ending up quoting at the end of the game here, and it's really what's inspired this video. It's just not right to start a game like that. Listen, I'm the head coach, so I'm responsible for the way we start and our team getting prepared. That starts with me. The second thing is, I'm not a babysitter. These guys are men. They're professionals, and they're paid to show up here and go to work. My job is to make that happen. The third thing would be, you cannot play this game without passion, without emotions. You cannot play this game on your heels, and I hate when we're on our heels. It's not right. It was also seen at one point during the game that he was actually punching the glass behind the bench. Now, do I think that's the best reaction? Not ideally, but it does show emotion from the coach. And during another angry spell, it was actually reported that he said, it's 15-3 out there. Now, while I was watching this game, I was following it on social media like I normally do, and there's always the interesting things that come out of it that, you know, it's not necessarily the head coach's fault, or I'm a Jets fan, any fan, until I die. You know, we got to have belief that we're going to take this, and then you end up winning the game and you feel like all is right in the universe. That isn't how professional sports or professional coaches or professional athletes operate. They actually want to be at their highest performing level at all points in time and make sure that their behaviors and attributes on the ice and on the bench are reflective of that of a championship caliber team. And getting behind 20-8 is not an acceptable start. So punching the glass and swearing and going up and down the bench is maybe not a reasonable reaction to some, but at the end of the day is a more normalized reaction in sports. Whether or not you agree it should be is a totally different subject for a different day. Now, before we talk about what Rick Bowness has done, we have to talk about the problems that he's actually come in to solve. The Winnipeg Jets' biggest challenge under Paul Maurice, and a lot of different hockey teams out there have this challenge consistently. It was the fact that there were a lot of loud voices in the room. There was consistency within the players. The lines hadn't been changed in a long period of time under Maurice. And by the lines, I don't just mean game by game shuffling. I mean, every coach in his head has a depth chart that he's working on. And you could see with Paul Maurice that Blake Wheeler and Mark Scheifele were number 1 and 2 on that depth chart. Now, are they great players and should they have been? Absolutely. Talent is talent. But Bowness and any new coach coming in, specifically Rick, because that's who we're talking about, gets an opportunity to not only be a new voice in the locker room, but he gets an opportunity to reshuffle the calculation he has in his head in terms of how he weights, ranks, and values players. And he has a different philosophy and a different system in his head because he is a different coach on how he ranks and values players. What this leads to is more of an open competition for players, where those who feel they couldn't break through the glass ceiling have a new opportunity with this coach to do so, and those who have may gotten too comfortable on the perch have to push themselves and challenge themselves to keep their spot at the top of the mountain. And you can see it. Bowness is in his late 60s right now. He's been around the block or two in hockey. He has nothing left to technically prove. He wants to win a championship. He wants to push these guys into doing the best he can. And he even discussed in the fact in the presser himself after the game that he has his core values, he has his coaching philosophy, and he's going to be damned if he lets anybody change those. He wants to be able to go to bed at night knowing he's done the best for these men. And he says he coaches people the same way he would want to be coached. So no smoke and mirrors here, no magic sauce. He just takes his own personal core values and instills them into his players. And that is always going to ring through and bring in an authentic self. And people want to work for, or at least perform for, authentic selves. The other key to note about this as well, and fans don't love to hear this, but it is true, is that hockey coaches, general managers, and players are transient. They're contracted employees to an organization, and as fans of an organization, we believe that there is an assimilation or a love of teamwork and team and sense of organization that I have said on this channel since it has started doesn't always necessarily ring true to the contracted employees. Some it does, definitely, especially the staples of organizations for long times. That's why we hang banners in the stands. But for the most part, people are here for a limited time in a results-based business where they're being given money in exchange for services that people think no one can do better for them in terms of that money. It is very simple. And when you're a contracted employee, sometimes you're not as passionately involved in the organization as, say, a fan would be, but they are still passionately involved in some way. It's just different. And if you get it, great. Comment down below. If you don't get what I'm saying, also comment down below and let me know. Coach, I don't know. Maybe I'm not following you on this one. Also, while you're commenting down below, quickly hit the thumbs up for me because it really helps share this content. Hit the subscribe button, especially if you're an NHL and Jets fan. You can hit me up over on Discord, and a big shout out to all my members down below on the coaches staff. Now back to Bowness and what Bowness has brought to the organization. The fact that he's coaching players the way he wants to be coached, and the fact that he recognizes that this is a results-based business and that he's here on a 2-year contract with an option for a 3rd-year extension, which isn't a very long period of time. He doesn't have anything to prove to anybody other than to himself, which is a very important key in this. He's not mincing words. He is telling players at all levels, whether it's Mark Scheifele, Josh Morrissey, or Connor Hellebuck, exactly what he wants them to do and exactly what he expects of them. And he draws a very clear box. He is a very good communicator that states, this box is what I expect you to do. If I don't tell you it's in the box, you have your own freedom and creativity as a professional to get this done. So when he says it's his job to get the team ready before the game, he takes ownership and accountability that as a coach, he sets the tone. And I know this as a coach. We set the tone as a coach for the culture that we want in that locker room. But then he says, I'm not a babysitter. And that is also true because it is up to these players to show up night in and night out. And when Paul Maurice was struggling, there was all the fan opinions from it's up to the players to fire the coach, when in reality, it's both. Both groups need to do their job, and clearly Bowness is doing his job, and the players, for the most part, especially when you're first in the Central, are doing their job as well. But they are still far away from exactly what Rick wants to see, especially to be a Stanley Cup team. You cannot start out 20-8. In terms of a shot count. That is just not the right way to play the game. And that's what he's saying, where you can't play on your heels. If you're playing on your heels and playing catch up, that's not where you want to be. What you want to do as a hockey team is come out consistently. You want to generate more shots than the opposing team at all areas, all times of the game. You want to control the play to the best of your ability, limit your mistakes, exploit their mistakes, and win a game. So you want to come in almost boring and clinical in the way you dissect a team. You want to come in boring and clinical in the way you prepare for a game. Routine breeds instinct, and instinct, when your brain stops working, when you're tired, when you're fatigued on a shift, will end up taking over and you'll end up having good habits. That's why coaches always preach habits, whether it's pre-game habits, post-game habits, habits during the game, habits between the shift. It's because it allows your body and your muscle memory to be trained to do when your brain is too fatigued to think, or you find yourself in an unfamiliar scenario. That old scenario Mike Tyson used to say, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. Well, if you've been punched in the face enough and you practiced at live speed and practiced in live fire exercises, your brain, mind, and body are going to be prepared for that punch you inevitably take in the face, which in this case is an analogy for playing against the Anaheim Ducks or an opposing team if you're the Winnipeg Jets. The other thing Bowness has done is he's held fair consequences to his expectations. So a lot of people want to live in a fallacy world where they believe if you work really hard and try your best, you're going to get everything you wanted and desired. It doesn't work like that in life, and it doesn't work like that in the NHL. Talent matters, and you are not going to pass talent with hard work alone. You have to be talented in your own right, and it is much harder to grow that level of talent when you are already a full-grown adult, especially playing in the NHL. Players know where they rank, but that doesn't mean you don't stop controlling what you can control. And what you can control in an NHL game is your mindset, your preparedness, and what you're ready to do in terms of following a coach like Bowness's message. And if you don't follow that and do your job, and every player on the Jets has a very defined job, then Bowness will hand out the consequences, and he will tell you you have failed at doing your job without mincing words. And that is very important. That builds teams. So any coaches or any leaders that you see out there when you get behind the scenes in sports, or think of in your own life, that don't hold the best players accountable to the exact same thing they hold the worst players accountable to, are going to lose the room. And it's very clear Rick doesn't do that. He holds Scheifele, Wheeler, Morrissey, Hellebuck, and the rest just as accountable as he would go ahead and hold Dominic Toninato, who is simply a call-up from the AHL. The other thing that he's very clear on is explaining to his players that life isn't fair and your job isn't fair. Certain players have more pressure on them than other players, and he lets them know that. And if they let him down, yes, it is up to a team to go ahead and pick you up. If your goalie is a bad game, it's up to your forwards and defensemen to outscore the other team and win one for the goalie, win one for the old Gipper, they say. But it's also just as much up to the goalie to bail out your team if they're having a bum night and unable to score. It's the same thing with a third liner being able to put in secondary scoring if the first line can't score, and vice versa. But in the game of averages, when you're preparing for the Stanley Cup, Bowness doesn't mince words. The first line's job is to score. Scheifele's job is to put points on the board and to keep points out of his net. Score more than you get scored on, and you're going to do it by playing this way and instituting these habits. Those are Bowness's habits. Those are Bowness's ideals for what makes a championship team. Mark's job is to follow them. Now, it's interesting because he actually reminds me of another controversial coach in the NHL in John Tortorella. Tortorella is one of the smartest individuals, especially when you hear him speak, but he's very controversial. Bowness is almost a toned down version of it, where John Tortorella sometimes has theatrical antics in order to push his players. Bowness uses the same general idea that Tortorella does. Actions have consequences, and those consequences can be good or bad. It can be a reward of more ice time. It can be a reward of a letter on your jersey or a trip to the All-Star game. It can also be consequences in terms of missing shifts, missing ice, or being called out in the press box. There's nothing wrong with that. Letting somebody know it's a results-based business is fine. These are professional adults that have to be ready for it. But what people get worried about at this point in time is that, will that message wear thin? And I don't think it does. When you end up being fair and transparent as a communicator to your team is going to appreciate it. They're going to go through that wall. Where Tortorella loses points with his team and Bowness does not is the fact that Tortorella uses what I determined before, which is theatrics and sometimes a little bit over the top. I'm not going to call them necessarily childish, but antics or ways about his coaching that can actually end up losing a room. Bowness doesn't do that. It's a very tried and true method. You work hard, you follow the plan. We all include, you have free reign where I give you free reign. And other than that, we do our job. So you let me know, Jets fans, are you pretty thrilled with Bowness? Let me know if you like this breakdown of what Rick Bowness or other coaches end up saying to the media. And if you yourself have any questions about what the coach, general manager, or anybody else is speaking to his players, and you want Coach Ryan D's talking head opinion on it, leave that down below in the comments. And also, don't forget, if you're a hockey nut like me, down below we have an affiliate link for Coach Jack Hahn's NHL coaching book. If you want to go ahead and see what your favorite team is doing or what the Winnipeg Jets are doing this year, check that affiliate link down below. $32. All proceeds go to sponsor and support this channel. Coach Jack Hahn is one amazing coach, and it gives you a little more insight into the world that I've lived in my entire life. Thanks for being here. We'll catch you on the next one.